Who says 4G can't be cheap? What's going on, guys? I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com, and Verizon has finally listened to those people that said, hey, I want 4G, but I don't want to spend $299 for a phone like the Droid Bionic or the HTC Thunderbolt. Here's the Pantech Breakout. Now, specs-wise, it's not quite up to par with the Thunderbolt, the Droid Charge, the Revolution, the Droid Bionic, all those high-end LTE devices on Verizon, but it still has a pretty respectable 1 GHz processor, 5 megapixel camera, 4-inch display, and best of all, it's packing that LTE technology, and it's available for an under $100 price tag. It's a pretty decent device. We're going to check it out in the full review to see if this is a device you should get, or whether you should go with something like the Droid X2, the Droid 3, or something with a dual-core processor. We'll check it out, but first, special thanks to our friends at Best Buy because they hook us up with so many devices for use in our one-paw bandit games. So when you go into Best Buy Mobile, they're going to help you set up your phone with Walkout Working program. You're going to walk out working, they'll help you set up your email, your web, all that good stuff. So when you walk out, that's all set up. If you get a phone for grandma, they'll set up her contacts, they'll help her do all that and more. So when she walks out, she can call you fully set up. Enough of that, let's get into it. Pantech Breakout, full review. Is this a phone to get, or should you go with something else? We'll start right now. It's proof that you can have 4G LTE, but you don't have to pay that $249 or $299 price tag. Here's the Pantech Breakout. It's the first budget 4G LTE device, so it's available for $99, and it's ready to go right now at Verizon Wireless retail stores. Now, this thing isn't going to blow away the Droid Bionic or even the Thunderbolt or the Droid Charge by any means. It's packing a 1 GHz processor, single-core processor, a 5 megapixel camera on the back with no flash, and then on the front you have a front-facing camera. You have Android 2.3 with Pantech's custom UI, and then you have Wi-Fi connectivity, Bluetooth, all that good stuff. A 4-inch display with 480 by 800 pixels. So it's nothing to write home about, but still for $100, it's nice to get a device that supports 4G LTE capabilities. And you can see like all the other 4G LTE devices. This phone's pretty thick, but it is a little bit smaller due to the smaller display as opposed to something like the 4.3-inch display on the Droid Bionic or the 4.3-inch display on the Thunderbolt. Or come to think of the 4.3-inch display on all the other devices, the 4G LTE devices outside of this one. So this one's 4 inches. On the left spine, you have your 3.5mm headphone jack, you have your volume rocker, a camera, or a voice command shortcut button there, and then over here you have a micro USB charging port. If I can get the darn thing out. And you can see it there. Power button over here, and then you have a camera shortcut button over here. So you do get a physical camera button, which I like. Now the downside is you don't get a flash in the back. So if you're taking it in a low lit situation, you're going to be out of luck. 1500 milliamp hour battery here on the back. And then in here, you can see Android 2.3, got a front-facing camera and Android 2.3. Now it's a completely different look than you've seen before because Pantech's custom UI, and I have to say I've been using it for a couple of days, and surprisingly, it's not that bad. Yeah, it's a little bloaty, but in comparison, again, you look at it like I'm getting a phone for $100, it's not bad at all. This is going to be a good device, probably not for the Android diehards, but going to be a good device for somebody, again, first-time smartphone buyer, somebody that wants that 4G LTE and doesn't really care that much about specs, but wants a pretty decent smartphone. It's going to be just fine, but kind of bloaty. You can see you have your shortcut buttons up here. I kind of like that word, kind of bloaty. I think that's pretty funny. Verizon Wireless, no notifications here at the moment, but you can see Pantech's custom UI, and we'll go in here and take a look. Apps scroll from left to right, and you can see the icons are a little bit different depending on what you're looking at, but you get these little custom things like Converter, Dock Viewer, email's a little bit of a different icon, and you get Blockbuster, Amazon, Kindle, Google Books, Guided Tours, which is Verizon, Let's Golf 2, Mobile Hotspot, My Verizon Mobile, Need for Speed Shift, Net Media, NFL Mobile, which is a Verizon exclusive. Let's see here, Rhapsody. You got Task Manager, which is nice. Tip Calculator, Tune Wiki, Voice Control, all your VCast stuff, Media Manager, music, tones, and videos, VZ Navigator, and more. Special thanks, by the way, to Verizon. They were gracious enough to send us over a review unit so we could do this on video, so thanks to them as always. So you can see this custom dock down here, totally different than what we've seen before. 7 home screens. And all in all, it's relatively fast. You see some lag when you scroll from side to side. I see a little bit of lag when I do the web browsing test, which I'll show you in just a second, but still not bad at all. But you can see down here, you got your dock, a little bit of a different menu interface, like I said a minute ago. So it's different. You got your physical buttons down here in place of capacitive buttons, menu, home, back, and search, and this little kind of half moon here makes it kind of unique. Just something kind of different. Let me look at the messaging here. I feel like I've said the words different and bloaty a bunch of times in this video. I'm going to delete that message. So you don't see that number. That wouldn't be good, would it? I'd be getting a bunch of, well, actually, that would be cool. I'd like to hear from you. Anyway, messaging. Go in here and check, and you can, this is something I like. We'll go into messaging and take a look. You can see by date and time, and then you can see it alphabetically. So let's say you have a list of 20 messages. You can either organize those messages by most recent, or you can organize them by your friend's name. So that's kind of cool. But we'll go in here and take a look. Now, interestingly enough, this is the Android 2.3 stock keypad, or so it says, Android keyboard and swipe. But you'll notice that the keys, when you compare it to the real stock Gingerbread keyboard, which I'll pull up over here on the Galaxy S2 for you, you can see there are some minor differences to the way they look. They're a little bit more rounded on the Pantech Breakout. And again, 4-inch display over here. So you turn it into landscape, you should have an easy enough time. But people that have large fingers, the president of the Fat Finger Club like me, it's going to be kind of hard to type on this device. But we're going to try anyway. The Quick Brown Fox ate some peanut butter. Quick Brown Fox ate some peanut butter. So pretty easy to type on again. You know, it has this interesting little keyboard sound. There is autocorrect in the keyboard. And you have swipe if swipe's your thing, so that is pre-installed as well. And of course, quick transitions, relatively quick, I would say, between portrait and landscape. So all in all, pretty easy to type on. No huge challenges, and the display's large enough, you know, like I've said before, I think 4 inches is a good medium between huge, 4.5, 2 inches, and too small, you know, 3.5, 3.7 inch display. So it's a nice size, and it works well, especially on the keyboard front. If you're typing a long email or you're doing some messaging, it's not bad at all. Now that said, you know, there are plenty of other keyboard alternatives in the market. If you want SwiftKey, you can download the actual Gingerbread keyboard from the Android market that has the keys like the stock one I just showed you on the Galaxy S2. So it's pretty decent there as well. Let's take a look at the phone, so I can show you again, you know, Pantech's custom UI. There's some changes over here. You'll see that the keys are kind of island. They're separated a little bit, and then down here you have voice command, call, and text messaging. Now up at the top you have your call log, your contacts, your group, and speed dial. And then so let's say, you know, we're going to dial old. Well, actually it won't pop up that way. Let's do Rick James pops up. So you can see as soon as I start to dial his number, Rick James pops up as a suggested contact. Now I can text message Rick James, I can call directly, and I believe, I was going to say pressing and holding, I thought might do it, but we'll go ahead and press this so you can see it pre-fills in the number I can dial. And here's what it looks like when I dial Rick James. It shows North Carolina Verizon Wireless is part of a Verizon City ID trial. And you could see keypad, in, add call, and then you've got all your options down here. Mute speaker, noise free, and then a picture if you had it of Rick James. So pretty simple setup there, pretty similar to most of the other Android stuff. But I want to talk a little bit more about Android 2.3. Not necessarily that, but Pantech's custom UI. You do get some widgets out of the box. We'll go over here to an empty screen so you can see what comes in. And they're separated, much like a lot of the Motorola devices, they're separated between Pantech widgets and Android widgets. So you have all your, and I just did that wrong, all your typical Android widgets down through here. But then when you go back, you have your Pantech stuff. And notice that it pops up in a different menu. I kind of found that interesting. The Verizon or the stock Android ones don't pop up like this. They kind of pop up in the stock Android map. But this is unique because it does bring up this carousel where you can scroll in between. Now there are a lot of them. There are Task Manager, Memo, Event Notifications, Weather, Music, Social Net, Integrated Clock, Contacts, Calendar, Bookmark, Clock, Email, and Web Space. So quite a few different options. But we'll just, for sake of example, we'll pick Event. No, we'll pick Memo. Well, that's right. Drag it out, bring it up here. And then it should, I was going to say it should be on the screen. I don't know why it's doing that. Let's try Event Notification. There we go. So it shows me how many messages, how many emails, and how many missed calls I have. So all you have to do is drag it out and pop it up on the screen. And when you get something like Weather, where there are several different options, very similar to HTC Sense, it gives you the ability to scroll in between. Let's see if I can get that right. Scroll in between and do either the smaller one or the larger one. I just so happen to have some of these on the display. You have a little contact manager here, if you will. Weather data, it looks like. You have the smaller one, which is, that's what it looks like, and the larger one, which is there. Now it takes up a lot of screen real estate, and again, these aren't customizable widgets. You can see all I can do is delete those. So if you're looking for something to kind of fill in those blank spaces on the home screens, you may be out of luck. Let's take a look at the browser and load that up with these 4G LTE speeds. Now, just to clarify something I saw going around on the internet, this device does support 4G, but it also supports 3G and 1X. So it does have access to Verizon's EVDO network. So if you're in an area where 4G, you don't have 4G, or you're in an area where it may not be working, or you just want to turn it off, you can do that. It doesn't revert back to 1X. Somebody asked me that on Twitter, and I can't remember who it was. But I've seen it a couple times in various forums on the internet, so you don't have anything to worry about there. So it's loading up, and again, Verizon's 4G LTE, super fast. I'm in my office, and actually I'm convinced there's a Verizon repeater somewhere around here because the speeds are just are fantastic. So you can see pinch to zoom. Yeah, it's a little laggy. I mean, especially when you've seen videos in the past couple of days from me with like the Epic 4G Touch or the Galaxy S2, and it's super fast, super buttery smooth. This isn't as much, but again, you got to keep in mind the price point. It's $100, and for $100, I think that's worth $100 of performance. I think that's $100 worth of performance in my opinion. You know, it's definitely fast and reasonable, relatively fast, and of course the transitions are pretty decent. And so I can go over here, scroll up, and scroll down. I think it's really going to boil down to people that are watching this video. It's going to boil down to processor specs and overall specs of the device and the overall Pantech UI. That's really going to be the major, either the draws for you or the things that push you away to something like the Thunderbolt or perhaps the Droid Bionic, since as of right now it's the only dual-core 4G device. But you know, for other people, great first-time smartphone. Nice to have 4G on a device that's capable of attaining Verizon's LTE speeds.